Good morning and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am Castle Keeper Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today I am doing my second video, taking a look at magic in the basic set of Castles and Crusades. As you may know, I've been focusing on Castles and Crusades as I slowly move away from spending so much time and content on Dungeons and Dragons, with the exception of my current campaign of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition. I'll never break away from that, or not at least until we've concluded our campaign, which I expect to go at least another 12 months or 8 to 12 months or so on that. And then at that point, I'll look to transition my group of 8 players over to the advanced form of Castles and Crusades. But in the meantime, I've been previewing and reviewing the basic set of Castles and Crusades as a place possibly for the 5e refugees who have been abandoned by Wizards of the Coast, as an alternative to a place where they can come to a game system that has enough familiarity that they will be able to just pick it up right from the get-go, but also have some of these really interesting nuances to it, and differences and innovations. Um, Now, some of those innovations actually, and I did want to point this out, existed in Castles and Crusades back in 2004, and then were adopted by Mike Mearls and brought them into 5e. So this is not a copy of 5e. This is a predecessor to 5e. This came before 5e, and as a matter of fact, 5e had borrowed some of its elements from this. So, yeah, if you do see some things in here that are that seem familiar, that might be the possibility. Is that that's one of the rule systems that Mike Mearls brought into 5e from his contact with Castles and Crusades. Castles and Crusades also has a different system. It uses a different system for skill resolution, and including combat resolution as well. So it is its own game system, and it has a lot of its own. It has a lot of its own nomenclature as well, and it's a very different theme that's still high fantasy, but it's high fantasy with a lot of grounding in real world mythologies and folklore and such. So, and many of the most challenging creatures that you might have to combat in Castles and Crusades are directly from those various mythological beasts that are in real world mythologies as well. So it really is a different feel for it, and yet it still has that legacy of being the last game system that Gary Gygax actually contributed to, and Gary Gygax himself, had said that this would have been, in his mind, the true successor to AD&D First Edition. So it's kind of a compromise between AD&D First Edition and Third Edition D&D, and so it kind of falls in between there. Um, and it has a looser connection, or maybe not even that much connection at all, to AD&D Second Edition. So it kind of leapfrogs over Second Edition and combines that up. So without further ado, let's jump into talking about the magic system. So I'm going to go back to Men and Magic here, and talk about the magic system And one of those innovations that really stands out to me is the way that both wisdom and intelligence works towards um, enhancing magic. All right, so I will start with clerics, and here we go. So under abilities for clerics, it says spells. A cleric casts divine spells. The spells available are listed on the cleric's spell list, which I'll get to in the Eldritch Enchantments book. A cleric is limited to a certain number of spells of each spell level per day. The cleric's spells per day table shows the number of spells per day a character of this class may cast. And it's the Vancian magic system, right? So based on your level, you can cast a certain number of zero level spells, first level spells, second, third, fourth, and fifth. That's as far as the basic game brings you through is to level 10. All right. Spell bonuses. And so this is a difference from AD&D that did not exist here. All right. So high wisdom indicates a greater divine connection. Clerics with a high wisdom gain bonus spells. If they have a wisdom of 13 to 15, they receive extra first level spell. If they have a wisdom score of 16 or 17, they receive an extra second level spell. And if an 18 or a 19, they gain an extra third level spell. Bonus spells can only be acquired if the cleric is at a high enough level to cast them. Bonus spells are cumulative. So yeah, if you have an 18 wisdom, and you can cast up to third level spells, that cleric is going to get an additional first, second, and third level spell. They do something very similar with magic users, and I'll get to that as well, or wizards as they call them here. So, turning undead, I wanted to focus on this because even though this is not necessarily a spell ability, this is something that is very important to a cleric and with wisdom as the primary ability score that is going to govern wisdom, to govern turning dead. A cleric has the ability to turn or even destroy undead monsters. Turn undead is considered a special attack and takes 1 round. Turn undead has a maximum range of 60 feet. Turning undead consists of channeling divine power. The ability to channel divine power is measured by the cleric's own willpower. Accordingly, charisma, not wisdom, affects the number of undead creatures that are turned with a successful turn undead check. In most cases, the number of undead turned will be 1 to 12, plus the cleric's charisma modifier. When a cleric is 5 or more levels higher than the undead being turned, the undead are instead destroyed. Evil clerics may, instead of turning undead, control them. An evil cleric must be at least 5 levels higher than the hit dice of the undead sought to be controlled. Turning undead is covered in greater detail in Volume 3, and I'll get to that later on. So it's not quite a spell, but it is of the nature of their divine. They're being able to harness divine power, and so I just bring it up here. But even there, with Turn Undead, you'll see how it's the combination of wisdom and as well as charisma. All right. So the cleric's presence becomes important as well. So now I will go to wizards, and again, same, almost verbatim the same, just that it applies to wizards here. So abilities, they're spells. All right. So wizards cast arcane spells. Wizards can only cast a limited number of spells from each spell level per day, and so on. Um, for example, a fifth level wizard can cast 5 zero level spells, 4 first level spells, 2 second level spells, and one third level spell per day. A wizard must prepare spells before casting them by studying from the spell book. While studying, the wizard decides which spells to prepare. Spell memorization and spell descriptions are covered in Volume 2, which I'm going to go into. Bonus spells are based on intelligence. So in AD&D First Edition, intelligence increases the number of languages that you can speak, and it really does nothing for um, the wizard's spell casting ability. I actually homebrewed this into my own game where they do gain that extra one spell, two spells, without realizing that it was already here. I started my I started my AD&D campaign um, over a year and a half ago, and I didn't really start picking into Castles and Crusades until slightly later than that. So didn't realize that it was actually coming from this, already. So that's a pretty neat feature that they have here. The other thing that I got from Castles and Crusades and reading through this, and I might not pick up on it when I go to the booklet itself and start going over it, was that I really like the idea of how they described um, spell casting and what is actually required to do. So they talk about spell preparation and what it actually is. So it's not just saying, oh, well, I'm going to prepare my spells. I'm going to spend 2 hours preparing my spells, and now I have my spells the next day to utilize. They actually go into more detail about what it actually means to be preparing your spells and how far along you've prepared your spells before actually casting. And so they describe when you're casting a spell, you are just adding that last bit of a trigger. It might be a word, it might be a pinch of dust, it might, a spell component or something, but you have like 95% of that spell format already memorized for the day. And then all it requires is that one word. That's why it only takes like a segment or a very short period of time during a combat round to actually cast a spell because they have 95% of it or more, already memorized, and they just need one trigger word in order to fire that off. Now, does that make a game mechanic difference? No, but I do like the way that it at least it explains how the relationship between studying or praying for your spells. It's not just praying for your spells, but it's also um, doing some kind of a ritual that literally takes hours of study or hours of prayer and ritual in order to be prepared for the next day's spells. But so I really liked it. I like the way that they describe it, and you start to see, it's not just the game mechanics behind it, but it's you start to see what is actually involved with spell casting or drawing upon the favors of your deity or pantheon in this as well. So without further ado, let's actually start taking a look at Eldritch Enchantments. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a PDF for this, so I'm just, just bear with me that you won't be able to read this, as I'm going through it. So, magic users and clerics, and I already gave a brief description there. Here is preparing spells. So, like in common parlance, spellcasters memorize their spells for the day and then forget them once cast. In truth, it's far more complex than this. Each spell is a living weave of energy that requires a great deal of time, effort, and ritual to cast. A daily preparation is the means by which casters perform these rituals in a specialized method, combining all of their prepared spells for the day into one great process, holding back just a few key elements. This is the difference between casting magic missile or spiritual weapon via a ritual that takes, say, 15 minutes, which would make it largely useless, and casting it using an action in the midst of battles. So, like I said, I mentioned it. You have almost all of it already memorized or ritualized beforehand, and it just takes that trigger. So, daily preparation, clerics and wizards prepare their spells each day. Wizards do this by undergoing complex series of rituals, in essence, doing the lion's share of all spell casting for the day in these minutes to hours each morning. Clerics spend time in contemplation, meditation, and prayer as they commune with their deity or deities if they worship an entire pantheon. The tables under the cleric and wizard character classes in Volume 1 describe how many spells of each level the caster can prepare. The cleric or wizard must sleep for 8 hours before they can prepare spells for the day. Preparation of spells requires 15 minutes of uninterrupted study and ritual per spell prepared. All right. Now, they don't further expand on it like spell levels prepared. So here they talk about it like you need a full night's rest and then you prepare. All right. And so that is going to, of course, the, change the process of adventuring for a lot of parties. So, I would imagine that, when the adventure party gets up and they're preparing to leave for the day, um, this may very much push them back into the later morning hours before they actually depart. It actually has a logistical effect when you're dealing with this. The nature of spell slots. I'm not going to get into that, because that's Vancian magic system. So at a certain level, you get a certain level of spells and a certain number of times that you can cast those spells. The other thing that they go into here a little bit, and I might just need some further clarification, is that I started thinking about it, and I will change view here for a second. I started thinking about it when they were describing it, and it almost seems like preparing for the same spell more than once in that day. So let's say taking two magic missile spells in your slots that day. Um, when you give that trigger to initiate that spell, is there a chance that you trigger both? Um, unintentionally trigger both or whatever? Or is there a prohibition from doubling up on spells? So you can't, as a magic user, so that um, you can't duplicate, and because of that risk factor of um, of triggering the same spell twice by using the one component to do so. So um, that's just a question that I had when I was, thinking about this. Was uh, you know, that might be like a fumble instance, right? If for some reason something occurred that caused the spellcaster to fumble his or her spell casting, and they end up firing off both at the same time. So, just a curiosity of mine, and you know, I'll go to the Facebook group and ask about that question, and come back to you when I do part three of this with that answer, hopefully within the next day or so. So anyway, let's get back to the actual book. So learning new spells when gaining a level. When a wizard earns a new level of experience, They may add a single spell to their book of any level they can currently cast. All right. And I will typically let them, uh, you know, one will be random and one will be chosen. However, when they're learning new spells as a result of leveling up, they get to choose that one. Um, they can also gain new spells, obviously, from coming across scrolls, and then instead of casting it off the scroll, they go through the process of including that into their spell book as well. It also mentioned that they will have wizards will have the number of spells that they can cast in their spell book right from the start, right? So they will begin with four cantrips and at least the number of spells that they can cast for first level. So and that's modified by the number of. So they'll have in their spell book four zero-level spells and two first-level spells, modified by their intelligence, because um, they can have up to an additional three of both types in there. So let's get to the actual spell lists, and I'm just going to cover the zero-level spells for the cleric and some of the first level spells for the cleric, and then I will do the same for the magic user. But there are a total of 5 levels of spells for clerics in here, and I believe also the same for magic users up to 5th level. So again, this is the basic game. This is the starter set, if you will, and get you launched off. So zero-level spells. You have create for a cleric. Create water, detect alignment, detect magic, detect poison, endure elements, first aid, light, and purified food and drink. So, and the fact that clerics can just draw upon these, they don't have to pre um, they'll have the full selection of it. They do have to pre-memorize these or pre-ritualize and pray for these particular ones, but they won't. They can draw upon them. It's not like it's from a spell book. They can draw upon all of them, at any time, any four, let's say, or as they go higher level, any five, and then their bonuses as well. So they have that there. So first level is bless water, command, cure light wounds, detect secret doors, detect undead, invisibility to undead, protection from alignment, remove fear, resist elements, sanctuary, shield of faith, and sound burst. All right, so you're already noticing that they have some spells that aren't found in Dungeons and Dragons, and that is because they, they did not directly copy completely from the SRD of Dungeons and Dragons. Some of it might have bled through, and Troll Lord Games is going to be working on cleaning up some of these things and removing some of those connections. Like I had mentioned, Magic Missile, that is going to be changed to something else. Let's take a look at those zero-level and first-level magic user spells. So here we have Arcane Mark, Dancing Lights, Detect Magic, Detect Poison, Endure Elements, Ghost Sound, Light, Mage Hand, Mending, Message, Open and Close, and Prestidigitation. And then first level spells, we have Alter Size, Burning Hands, that'll most likely have to change, Chain Self, Charm Person, Comprehend Languages, Erase, Featherfall, they may have to change that, Floating Disc, Hold Portal, Identify, Jump, Magic Missile, Protection from Alignment, Read Magic, Shield, Shocking Grasp, Sleep, Spider Climb, Summon Familiar, and Unseen Servant. So quite a few first level spells, along with their zero level spells, for cantrips and such. So really in depth number of spells for a zero and first level. Now here is the Grimoire section, and what this does is that this puts all spell and I call clerical spells favors. So all spells, wizard spells, and all clerical favors in the grimoire alphabetical order. So you can go on through here and you can look up any particular um, spell like ability and take a look at what it actually does. Now, the actual mechanical effects are just these small little blocks that you see up top and maybe a few little items from the description. So this would be really, really easy for you as a magic user or a cleric to just jot down those portions on like an index card. That way you'd have it, in your hand at the moment, and you can just select out from your selection from your spell book or just from your knowledge base as a cleric which ones you're going to prepare for the day, and then set aside the rest of the cards off to the side and kind of go like that. So it'd be like your traveling spell book is just a series of small index cards with these little things on here. I really do believe that that will streamline spell casting during gameplay. All right, because now they have it bang, it's right there in front of them, and they're not looking at a whole list of spells that they already have. They're just looking at the cards that are in their hand in order to do that. So, and that might be something like really cool for Troll Lord Games to do is to actually come out with a deck of cards of all of their spells written out on there, and then the players can, just have their available deck in their hands to use while they're playing. I know Modifius does that with Conan 2D20. All right, it has sorcery cards, which have the spell descriptions on them, and that would be a cool thing for them to include here. But anyway, it gives you all of the spells A through Z, and let's see. I was curious to see what prestidigitation actually does. Because it's usually it's a title for a type of wizard, but I want to see what the actual spell description does. So I'm going to go all the way to section P and take a look at it. And all right, so let's see. Clerics at level 5 spell can plane shift. That's pretty cool. Prestidigitation. So it's a zero level spell. Wizard, a cleric also zero level spell. All right, so yeah, and that's the one thing in this game system too is that they do share quite a lot of abilities here. The rudimentary prestidigitation spell is a building block for arcane spells and enables the caster to perform a variety of simple magical effects. This spell can clean, soil, or alter the color of an item in a 1 foot cube. It can chill, warm, or flavor 1 pound of non living material. It can move up to 1 pound of matter. It can create. So basically, it's like a cantrip that you could do things like Mickey Mouse and Fantasia kind of thing. Clean the room, do that kind of stuff. All right. So now I know what they mean by it. But there's a lot of really cool stuff. Oh, there was one thing with Raised Dead that um I wanted to focus on. So because there's a reverse to it, but it's not like it's Control Dead. It's Preserve the corpse. So let me see if it's in here. This spell restores the life to a deceased human or humanoid. This includes all monstrous humanoid creatures or creatures that are partially human, such as centaurs or sphinxes. The spell can raise creatures who have been dead longer than 1 day per caster level. The subject loses 1 point of constitution permanently. There was another one though. There was another spell that I was like, let me check that out. This comes afterwards. There was a there was a spell called Preserve. Let me see if I come across it. Um, it was a higher level spell, not Animate Dead, and it was reversible, or it was the reverse. Let me see if I come across it. Alter size. Animate dead. Let's see if this is it. The spell turns the bones of bodies of dead creatures. All right. Da, 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 and preserve dead. All right. So it's animate dead. All right. So animate dead is a third level cleric spell or fifth level wizard spell. And under preserve dead, this reverse version has two effects. First, the caster preserves the remains of a target corpse so that they do not decay for 1 day per level of the caster. Doing so extends the time limit and raises on raising the creature from the dead. The spell works on severed body parts and the like. Second, the spell permanently prevents the target's corpse from being animated by an animate dead spell. If the target corpse is preserved and then raised from the dead or resurrected, the spell ends. All right, so yeah, that's pretty cool because that allows you to kind of, if a party member dies, the cleric has preserve dead on the body, and it will prolong the amount of time that he or she needs to get back to that body in order to do a raised dead or a resurrection on it. Um, it also prevents anyone from animating that let's say an opponent, an evil cleric or wizard, animating that body of your former party member to use against you, at that point. So there's quite a lot in here, and there's a ton of spells for both magic users and clerics, and or wizards, I should say, wizards and clerics, and I like the fact that some of them are, and I'll switch views here. I like the fact that some of them do have some crossover, especially at some of the lower levels, and or it's a cleric level 3, but it's a magic user level 5. So so it does put it really more so in the domain of clerics, and vice versa. There is probably spells in there that do the exact opposite, where a cleric can do it, but at a higher level than what a magic user has access to it as well. So it's not an overly complex system. It does some things that are certainly advancements from the Vancian system of AD&D First Edition, without some of the complications. And like I said earlier, what I like most about it is that it does explain in a way that makes you understand, what is actually happening when a character is casting magic, what it actually takes for them to do it, and the rules and the costs for actually learning new spells and such that are in the full game or the more advanced game than this. You start realizing, wow, it's a spell in a spell book actually takes like an entire page per level of the spell. So it starts to give you an idea. It's like, wow, if I'm going to put a ninth level spell in my spell book, I'm a master wizard, an arch wizard. um, I need to have a spell book that can take 9 pages of writing in order to, in order to put that spell into my spell book. And of that 9 pages, that will take me 15 minutes per spell level to actually memorize. Then I'm still just leaving one keyword out so that I can cast it later on in that day. It really does give you a sense of what it takes to um, to prepare all your spells. I mean, a magic user might have to spend 4 hours or more to memorize all of his or her spells, just to be prepared for that day. And it really does um, give the player party that sense of, well, if you want a magic user in your group, this is something that you're going to have to prepare for. And really does, like, um it's like part of your logistical calculation for your adventure. It really does set you into the role playing of the game, because that does have to be accounted for. That timing does have to be accounted for in what you're doing, and in your role playing your characters. What are the rest of the party doing if the magic user or the cleric are both holding up their fingers saying, oh, no, no, we can't leave yet. We don't have all of our, we need at least another hour and a half. Well, what does the rest of the party do during that hour and a half? Well, that's where the castle keeper can come in and say, all right, well, you're going to go, here and do this thing. And what are you looking to do? Well, you're looking to do this, and you're going to go and do this. And it really does bring the whole adventuring part to life, in my opinion, because um, you're not metagaming this. You're not just sticking to the mechanics of it, and you're not waving them away either. You're actually making everyone make decisions about what their characters are doing during that time. So, um, hey, this is really cool stuff. I really enjoy tearing through this, and looking through the thing, looking through the basic rules, and and seeing like what aspects of it that I might use, what aspects of it I might say, well, I'm not going to bother using it. It really depends on how you're using the game and when you're using the game. If I'm running Castles and Crusades, the white box at a convention, I'm obviously not going to spend that time doing that kind of a thing. We want to get rolling right into whatever the adventure is. But if it's my home campaign, certainly have them focus that time on doing it. And it's not going to take a whole lot of time. It's just enough to give them the sense that this is the kind of thing that has to go into preparation for adventuring. And so it's important to um, focus on that role playing aspect of the game. So I hope you like this video. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the questions or comments section. If you know better than I about that idea of duplicate spells for a magic user, and whether or not doing that final spell component or final semantic spell component would fire off multiple unintentionally multiple spells that you've memorized for the day of the same spell, that would be, you know, that would be very appreciated to see someone else who has that in mind, or they have the answer to that. And as always, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Spread the word out for the channel. Let's keep the channel growing so that the more reach the channel has, the more that I get feedback from people and ideas from people coming in and saying, "Hey, take a look at this game," or take a look at some other thing. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing from you what else I can be doing on the channel moving forward. I'm going to continue doing Castles and Crusades. Like I said, I think that Castles and Crusades, especially in this, so this is about $50, and everything that you need in one $50, you know, one $50 box here, and you can see it's still fairly small, fits on the shelf, and it's a great place if you are a 5e refugee looking for some new place to land that's familiar but different enough that you'll find a lot of innovation in there and a lot of interesting stuff. uh, Castles and Crusades is the place for you to go. Troll Lord Games has tons of stuff out there, and they have frequent sales as well. So you can always go to them. You can get their full player's handbook, and its seventh printing, I believe, in for free on PDF. So they do have a lot of stuff in their free bundle over there that you can also pick up as well. So yeah, Troll Lord Games. Just trolllordgames.com, and you will go there, and you will you'll find all kinds of stuff. Or it might just be trolllords.com. I just go there; it automatically links there. But anyway, have a great day, and keep on gaming out there. I look forward to seeing you on a gaming screen sometime soon. Take care.